Both my parents had tested positive at the same time. At that particular moment, there was nothing in the mind. Uh, It was a complete blackout, and we didn't know what to do. So I live with my mother, father, and a 96-year-old grandmother in Uttarali, Bangalore. And in January 2021, we faced the wrath of COVID-19 as well. So what happened is my mother was showing some symptoms of COVID-19 like uh, cough and fever, and it persisted for around 3 to 4 days. So we decided to take her to a nearby hospital and get her checked by the doctor. So the medical staff there, looking at her symptoms, recommended having an rapid antigen test. And after undergoing the rapid antigen test, the hospital authorities informed me and my father that my mother had tested positive for coronavirus. Um, it's hard to explain the emotions and to put in words what we felt at that moment because we had seen a lot of stories, and on media we used to hear a lot of stories about people getting infected by the coronavirus, and a lot of people were losing their lives. So I think you can imagine what must have been going through in our minds at that moment. There was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, even though we had read a lot of articles on what precautions to take if someone has tested positive for coronavirus. At that particular moment, there was nothing in the mind. Uh, it was a complete blackout, and we didn't know what to do. But luckily for me, I had very good people around me who could help me in this situation. I mean, I had a couple of friends in the healthcare industry who guided me on what steps to take next. So the hospital authorities, the doctors were also really very supportive, and taking advice from my own friends, we decided to have a home isolation for my mother. Now there were a lot of things going on in my mind at that time. My mom still didn't know that she had tested positive. Uh, Both my father and I had been exposed to the virus now. We had to get tested, and there was a 96-year-old grandmother staying at my home. There was a high risk that she could have contracted the virus as well, and if my mom got to know that she had tested positive, she would have panicked a lot. So we had to figure a lot of things. So we at first we did not inform my mother that she had tested positive. We just told her that the test has been conducted, and we will get the report in a couple of days. And as a precautionary measure, we need to get isolated. So she said okay. And the next day, my father and I both went to a diagnostic center. We got ourselves tested. And later that evening, we got the report. I had tested negative. But to our shock, even my father had tested positive. So I can't even explain to you how it felt at that time. Both my parents had tested positive at the same time. At that moment, we decided that both of them need to get isolated in the home. And the very next day, we shifted our grandmother to my brother's place in JP Nagar. And after that, for the next couple of days, it was true hell. We informed my mother that she had tested positive, and she was in no position to believe us that she had tested positive for coronavirus because there was a lot of misinformation, fake news going on in WhatsApp, and in other media. That there were a lot of fake tests happening and the results were not very accurate. So I really don't blame her that she felt that way. For 2 to 3 days, it was really hard to convince her to stay in one room, to stay isolated, because she's a person who doesn't even sit quiet for 5 minutes. She does some of the other work. So it was really hard for me to control her. But my father was totally chill. He was listening to his old Hindi songs. He was reading his books, calling up his friends and saying that he has tested positive and he's in isolation. It was quite easy for me to manage my dad, but totally different when it comes to my mother. She was crying a lot. there was a lot of pain. She was pretty weak at that moment. So even I understood that I need to understand her psyche, what she's feeling right now. So whenever I got time, I used to go to her. I used to stand at the door of the room and I used to chat with her. Both their rooms were totally opposite to each other. So I used to stand in the center and chat with both of them. Um, the situation was much better after 4 to 5 days. We used to chat a lot about our childhood. I used to engage my mother. I used to ask her to speak about her childhood memories so that the environment is such that it's quite light, it's quite positive, and she forgets that she is in isolation and she has been infected by the virus. It worked. I mean, there was a lot of positive environment in the home. And after that, I used to cook for both my parents at that time. So I used to be in the kitchen. I used to shout out to my mother, asking her when to put the salt, when to put the oil, all those things. She used to shout the instructions back to me from her own room. So it was getting fun. Um, in our normal lives, even though we stay together, we stay disconnected because of the mobile and with our own work. Somehow, surprisingly, because of coronavirus, it got us together. There was a lot of bonding happening, and I understood that when there is a positive vibe in the home, you can forget any kind of pain that you are experiencing. So I would urge all of you, whoever is suffering from coronavirus in their families, to create a positive environment in your homes. It is not the medicine or the vaccine that will cure you. The mental pain that you're going through, it can only be solved by happiness, and that happiness will come through positive experiences. So through this video, I would like to support you, to empathize with you, and give my support to your family. So whatever may come, create a positive experience and fight this virus.